Hello everyone, I'm your host BlackTuna and the day is finally here. New Genesis Phantasy Star Online 2 beta is officially out. Thankfully I've been granted access, so I managed to dive a little bit into the game. Unfortunately I don't have too much time to spare at the moment, again I'm in the middle of a relocation, but nonetheless I've managed to spend at least 5, maybe 6 hours into the beta. Now immediately there's not a whole lot to do in the game as of now, because first of all it's a beta. Secondly, if you compare it to Phantasy Star Online 2, the version that is basically on Steam or on the Microsoft Store, well, that version already has multiple chapters out already, so it makes sense that New Genesis will be a little bit behind with updates and content because it's gonna basically start from scratch. Nonetheless, in this tiny compressed beta, you can definitely get an understanding of what the game has to offer, how it improves upon the original Phantasy Star Online 2. And again, I know other people already had access to other betas, they've already been able to play the game and they already know how it is. Me personally, well, I was a bit unlucky, so this is my first time into the game. And before I get once again people in the comments saying that I cannot speak about the game because I'm not pro enough in the original Phantasy Star Online 2, well, I would like to say that right now in the original Phantasy Star Online 2 I'm almost level 100. Again, I have not maxed out my character, I don't do any of the min-maxing shit, but nonetheless I did manage to enjoy the game quite a lot. So yeah, I am a fan of Phantasy Star Online 2, not an hardcore fan, I'm not a pro, I'm just your average video game enjoyer. So with this out of the way, how is New Genesis Phantasy Star Online 2? Well, starting from the character creation, you can see that the game is already visually impressive. It's really beautiful, and this feeling, this sensation is amplified tenfold as soon as you get into the world, as soon as you get to explore the map. Now, the biggest change, of course, between this and the original version of the game is that this one is more of an open world, if you will. Meaning that yes, it is an open world, but there's still some sort of instancing between areas. Mind you, there's absolutely no loading screens once you enter the game. So even when walking from one area to the other, there's absolutely no loading screen. You transition through the areas like it's nothing, like it's not even loading anything. So yes, this is the biggest change, and me personally, when I heard that New Genesis would have been open world, first of all I was excited. Secondly, I was scared because, you know, it's not easy to make a good open world game, especially if you're trying to transform an instance-based game into an open world game. Well, to my surprise and my delight, I can say for sure that, at least personally, the open world is beautiful. They did an incredible job crafting it. There is a lot of verticality in certain areas, so it's not just a plain field that you walk through like it was in the previous game. So it's a real three-dimensional map. And verticality now more than ever plays a role even in the middle of the battle. Of course, even before it did, but I believe that now there's even more emphasis into it. Especially considering that the mobility right now, it's out of the charts. The amount of freedom of movement that this game gives you really puts you in a sandbox. You can really do whatever you want. You can double jump, glide, cancel the animation mid-air. Then of course, if you have weapons that have photon arts that allow you to move, you can even do those and combine everything to create some absurd combos and stay in the air virtually forever. Now again, I want to underline that yes, I know that even in the original game you can kinda stay in the air for as long as you wanted, but now with the fact that you can dash, sprint, glide through the air freely regardless of your class, it adds that many layers to the amount of movement that you get. And again, the fact that the game is an open world and actually develops in all the three dimensions made me really feel like the game world put no bounds over my character, which is an incredible feeling. And if you play the other MMORPGs that have invisible walls here and there and you cannot do anything and your character basically can just jump 20 centimeters from the ground and that's it, you know, you will realize as soon as you get into this game how much more enjoyable an experience like this is compared to others. Of course, you have to consider that this like the previous Phantasy Star Online 2, they are not tab targeting games, so there is also that to be considered. In fact, I think this game is the apex of the action type combat in MMORPGs, and not only New Genesis, even the original one. These games truly have some of the best action combat in MMOs, period, there's no arguing. Unfortunately, the only thing that will make you enjoy this one maybe a little bit less than the original is that right now the game doesn't have too many photon arts for each class. But of course you have to keep in mind that this is only a beta, this is only the beginning of the game. There's going to be updates in the future, they're gonna add classes, other photon arts, and so much more. Apart from that, I found the tutorial experience of New Genesis much more enjoyable than the tutorial experience in the original one. I feel like there was way less text to read and things were explained much better, but I believe this is also because they did streamline most of the processes in the game. I'm not sure which ones yet because I didn't go too deep into it, but I believe that's the reason, and it feels so much better. I feel like I'm not lost when I joined the game. When I started the original Phantasy Star Online 2, I really didn't know what to do or how to do things. Right now, despite not having a main story quest in the beta, I really didn't feel lost because on the map you can see exactly where NPCs that give you quests are, and when you do those quests they also try and teach you the basics of the game, the crafting, the enhancing, and so much more. And the way they explain it to you feels much more polished than it used to be. Plus the fact that it's so easy to transition from the main hub, the main city, to the outside world makes it so much more immediate. Even if you make a mistake and you have to go back in the city or you have to go back outside because you forgot to farm some materials, you can do it in the bat of an eye because again there are no loading screens and the outside world also has teleporters. Now teleporting does have a small loading screen, but it's nothing worth writing home about. It's really something so insignificant that I don't even feel like should be mentioned. Then of course in the open world you have all the classic elements of the original Phantasy Star Online 2. Of course I'm talking about emergency quests. These ones are going to be marked on your HUD with a letter E. Of course you follow the letter, you reach the location, you beat the shit out of the creatures, or you do what the emergency quest wants you to do, and then you move on to the next one. So in the open world there is always something to do. It's like if you would be moving in one of the original Phantasy Star Online 2 maps, but on a way bigger scale. And no matter where you are, no matter where you're going, there's going to be enemies, there's going to be emergency quests, there's going to be bosses spawning in front of you, there's going to be other secondary activities, there's going to be gathering that you can do, there's going to be this new type of cocoon quests, and I guess in the future so much more. And it feels so good that you can basically have quests in different areas and you can just walk through these areas and do quests one after the other without ever going back to the main hub or ever going back through a loading screen. And I can't stress this enough, this is a huge upgrade. Now, I'm not saying that there's never going to be loading screens, because of course there are some events in the future of Phantasy Star Online 2 that take place in space, so I'm assuming that for those ones eventually you will have to teleport somehow, some way. But as of now, for the main locations, the ones that you visit in classic explorations, there's really no loading screens. Plus again, the design of the world, the design of the creatures and the characters, the equipment, the weapon movesets, the very few photon arts that we have available right now, they all look beautiful. And if there is one other difference that I noticed in this game compared to the original is the difficulty level. Now, in the original PSO2, you basically can steamroll through most of the enemies without breaking a sweat. In New Genesis, I feel like the new player experience is much tougher and unforgiving. And I'm not saying it's a negative, but I feel like even the basic creatures, they pack a punch. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but this is something that I feel. Like the game is genuinely harder than the original one was. At least in the early phases. Maybe later on it's gonna become much easier, of course, when you get more photonars, when you get stronger with your gear and whatever. But I feel like they also tried to balance this difficulty with the fact that now you cannot perfect your attacks anymore. If you already played PSO2 or if you're a veteran, of course you would know that there's every time you attacked or you used the skill, there was a blue circle that appeared on your character and you could combo, for example, your basic attacks, and if you did it perfectly you would get a damage boost, of course. Now this thing doesn't exist anymore, or I haven't seen it yet, at least with my class, but if they did that, I think it was to balance out the fact that the game seems to be much less forgiving. Now at the time of recording this I am at level 12, so I haven't reached maximum level because again I really don't have too much time on my hands right now. But again, this is the extent of my experience in the beta of New Genesis PSO2, and what can I say, I really enjoyed the experience and I want to see where this game goes, because we all know how crazy PSO2 gets with creatures, with bosses, with movesets of enemies and so much more. So I want to see how they translate that in this new version, in this new engine, in the open world. I'm really curious because not too often you see a transposition of an instance-based game into a completely open world game, you know, completely changing the design but keeping the core game the same. So yes, I am excited, absolutely. And would I recommend playing New Genesis PSO2? Well, absolutely. And actually, if you were not a fan of the original PSO2, I feel like this one may shake you off a little bit. I think you should give it a try even if you didn't like the original, because this is so much different from the original one. Not at a core level as far as gameplay goes, but all the elements around it, the exploration, the map, the creature designs, more streamlined mechanics and so much more. So yeah, this is pretty much everything that I had to tell you today. Please, if you enjoyed the video, do click the like button, subscribe and leave a comment down below, because I will see you again soon enough with another video about Soul Worker.